Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm your host, Blue Thunderbird Woman, also known as Carol. Welcome to the Blue Feathered Stories. I am always so grateful that you're here joining this space with me today to listen to some of my stories about my healing journey and the encounters that I've had with spirit and guidance. And I hope that these stories bring you hope, possibly some wisdom or knowledge. That you get something out of them anyways. That is my wish. So several days ago, Spirit showed me that I needed to share about 3 big birds in my life. 3 birds. And I say big because they are some of the biggest birds in our province. And and how do they tie to my life? And when have they shown up? So they surround me or come to me when there are big decisions in my life. So 3 big decisions and 3 big birds. Yeah, that's what this podcast is going to be about. So let's start with the first. Many years ago, I found myself working for an insurance company. I was surrounded by some really great people, had a lot of fun. It certainly gave me the environment to be social with the coworkers. There's always something missing in that world of corporate life. I always had a huge longing to work for myself in some capacity. My dream was to run a bed and breakfast. Huge dream for me was to run a bed and breakfast. And it started in my early 20s, the very first time I had gone to a bed and breakfast and had that experience. I knew that one day that's what I wanted to do. Anyway, so I'm currently working at this insurance company, and I had these illusions that I wanted to grow. I had such a thirst for knowledge and such a thirst for expansion, and I wanted to grow. I wanted to make a difference. But I was also doing a lot of healing from my first quarter of my life traumas and experiences. So it was kind of in this strange place where lots of energies needed to shift it and out that no longer served me. But on the other hand, there was this whole world of exploration, and I wanted to grow. And in the corporate world, if you come from that world, maybe you can relate. But I find that growth can only happen as good as your supervisor will allow it to happen. And what I mean by that is there's this thing called the lid theory, that if you are expanding your knowledge and you are becoming a better person or more skilled at whatever it is that you do, and your supervisor or your boss is not on the same journey as well, at some point you're going to reach the lid. They're the lid. And you either have to surpass them, jump and leap over them, or you will forever remain stuck where you are. And I had reached the lid. And so when you reach the lid in a big corporate world, you're really at the mercy of those bosses. And they don't want to see you surpass them. They want to keep you where you are. So I had reached that point in my life in the corporate world. And I ended up Oh, I left and I came back and I left and I came back several times. But this particular time, I had finished a contract and I chose not to renew it. And I found myself unemployed. And at the same time, one of my colleagues also found herself unemployed. And she had a dream of starting her own business. And it was a business in human resources, doing accounting and databases. And so there were certain aspects of that that interested me. And she had approached me to join and create a venture together as a small business together. And at the same time, I had answered an ad in the paper that was employment. It was an employment program, so you had to be unemployed in order to be part of this program, and it was to run a business. And in this particular case, it was to really get entrepreneurs, small business people, to get them started. But this was a particular business. And it was to come and step in and run that business and learn from that, and then maybe possibly purchase the business, continue running it, or go off and do your own thing. So here I was at this crossroads where I had two opportunities and I needed to make a big decision. Either one of them didn't pay me well. Well, one didn't pay me at all, because it would be at the starting point of a whole new venture. And the other one was a fraction of my wages through unemployment services. So either way, money wasn't the factor. And so I asked for a sign, and I was pretty green to this whole spiritual path back then. But I did ask for a sign. I asked for some guidance. I asked for something that would help me make this decision. I had a deadline for both opportunities. I had to make a decision by a certain day. And the day of the deadline, I still was sitting with, where do I go? What do I do? Where is my heart being called? And then there's the logical brain thing. Anyways, I happened to be standing the kitchen window of my house. I was doing dishes, and I'm standing and I'm looking out at the backyard. And this humongous bird lands on the tree in my backyard. So it's probably about, 10 feet away from the window. A humongous woodpecker. Like, the cartoon character Woody Woodpecker, it is a pileated woodpecker. They're approximately a good 1.5 feet long from tail to top of crown, and black with this beautiful red head, white on the breasts, and they attach themselves to the tree and they eat the bugs. But here's the thing, I'm in the middle of the city, and there's a pileated woodpecker in the city. It is just unheard of. Unheard of, I tell you. Absolutely unheard of. I had seen the pileated woodpecker at my parents' place out in the country. They had 80 acres. I'd had the privilege of seeing one for the first time on my dad's sunflower seed feeder for the birds. But I had never, ever, ever seen a woodpecker in the middle of the city. And I certainly had never even seen woodpeckers in the city. The downy ones, the more common ones. Never had I ever seen one of those. So to actually see a pileated woodpecker in the middle of the city on the day that I need to make a decision as to which way do I go was a sign. It was a sign of direction. Because here's the thing. My father, when he was alive, he was the most incredibly talented wood carver. And he was mesmerized in an awe with the pileated woodpecker. He would get very excited when they would come to the yard. He'd know their song, he would know, and he carved a pair of them, a male and a female, because he would watch them. And he would watch them feed the young. They usually have one young, and he would watch them. And so he would often talk to me about the birds and the pileated woodpecker. And so for me to receive a sign from a pileated woodpecker was a pretty big deal. Pretty big deal. And my dad was still alive at the time that I was in this point of decision of the fork in the road. And it reminded me of his carvings. The woodpecker reminded me of his carvings. And so I knew then exactly which route I needed to go. And that was the route of the program with the unemployment insurance, running a small business, because the business in question was called Le Petit Poste, and it's a Métis word that means the little trading post. And it specialized in artists of Métis and Indigenous artists locally from the prairies. And I didn't know it at the time, but my dad had many of his carvings for sale in this store. I had no clue. I remember he had talked about having some of his stuff at a store in a little town south of Winnipeg, but honestly, I had no idea. And so here I did. I found myself in a job selling my dad's carvings. How beautiful is that? I wasn't there for long. I was only there for about 6 months. I met some incredible people during that time that are still very much a part of my life. I would not have met them had they not been there, had I not been there. And yeah, the woodpecker, he was the delivery of the message to take that fork in the road. And I'm forever grateful for the experience, because I really did see how starting up a business is challenging. There is lack of funds. You don't pay yourself. You work a lot of hours for very little in return in the first years. And so it showed me that you need a lot of grit in order to do that kind of a venture. But it never discouraged me. It only encouraged me. So that was the first big decision, and that was the first big bird. Several years later, after that big decision, I came across another point in my life. I had left that corporate world to work for a small business in a town that I'd moved to. I had moved to the country. I had found the house. My husband and I bought the house that would be the perfect bed and breakfast. So the dream was starting to come into reality. And I also found an employer with my skills, that I could use my skills that I'd learned in the corporate world, so that I did not need to travel an hour and a half every day into traffic to work in the city. And so we had made all of the arrangements. It took us a year and a bit to get our house ready in order to open up this bed and breakfast venture that we both embarked on, my husband and I. And I found myself a job working for a local gentleman running his business. And I was challenged there. I got to wear many hats. I was the customer service person in the financial industry. I was the computer tech girl. I was wore the hat of serving coffee when clients came in for meetings. So I was the barista, if you want to. I also was the accountant. I also was the office manager. I was many, many, many things. And it was a beautiful, beautiful experience, because when you run your own business, you are also all those things. So it did not it did not disappoint me in getting me ready for my own business. And I remember on the day of my interview with my new potential boss, I was very frank with him and said, I'm in the process of creating a business. It will be a bed and breakfast. It will be a destinational bed and breakfast. The house we live in has lots of history. And at some point, I expect that that will become busy enough that I no longer will work here. Perhaps I would work here part-time. I really don't know what that looks like. But for now, I know that I'm devoted to this job for the next 3 years. And he had never hired anybody. And he was going okay. It's hard to find somebody who can juggle all those hats. And I had all those skills. So I was hired. Always fully knowing that I was working on this business and that I would open my doors at some point and that I would possibly leave. So then fast forward 3 years, I'm now at a point, the doors have been open for a while at our bed and breakfast. And we started to become more and more busier all the time. And I was finding myself, there was one thing that I was really, really strict on, and that was that I refused to take my personal business at the office because this man was paying me to do work for him. And I never ever wanted to cross the road, like cross that boundary. I didn't ever want to take advantage of that and do my own business work while I was working for somebody else. That was something that my integrity would just not allow me to do. But I was finding within my, towards the end of my third year working full time, that I more and more was getting busier, and more there were times where I really needed to address certain situations while I was working for the other person, like having to call back a client or to get reservation information or different things like that. And so I started to struggle. But I also knew that my own personal business wasn't quite busy enough to allow me to walk away from a really good paying job. And I will say that I was the sole income earner at this point in our life together, my husband and I's life together. So it was really, I was at this place again where I really needed to seriously make another big decision. And so I asked for a sign. Now, this whole sign thing was getting to be a little bit better. I was beginning to really see these signs. But even though you get a sign, it doesn't mean that you pay attention to it. And you might have to get hit on the head several more times in order for it to sink in. But my sign was, what I wanted was a sign telling me, okay, is it time for me to leave my regular job? And is it time for me to focus on my personal business adventure? So I put it out there. I asked for a sign. It doesn't take long for Spirit to answer, because the next day I was getting ready to go to work. I started to drive to work. My work was literally 5 minutes away. I'm driving along. I'm about a mile away from home. I'm on a country road, a gravel road. I'm driving along by myself. And there in the middle of the road is a falcon. Yep, another big bird. A falcon. I've seen falcons flying around in the countryside, way up high in the sky, but never do you actually see them standing on a gravel road. Very rare. And if they're on the side of the gravel road, it's because there's some kind of roadkill that they're eating. It's not because they're just standing there in the middle of the road. So here I am, I'm driving, and this big bird sitting in the middle of the road, and I was just like, what the heck? What's this bird doing? So I slowed right down. And I started to just crawl really slowly with the vehicle, getting a little closer to the bird, and the bird wasn't moving, and it was right in the middle of the road. So now I've got my window rolled down, and then literally now I'm like, the bird is to the left of my driver window. It's just sitting on the road and it's not moving. So I start talking to it. I'm like, what are you doing? Are you injured? Are you injured? Do you need help? What are you doing in the middle of the road? Why are you not letting me pass? That's kind of my thing, right? And so I'm having this conversation with this bird, and of course there's like nobody else around. I'm just like in this time warp bubble, and I'm having a conversation with a falcon. And all of a sudden the falcon starts walking towards my door, and now he's like literally just there. I can see him full flight. Like I can see him. He's like right beside me on the ground, and I got my head popped out of the window, and I'm talking down to this falcon. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, do you have a message for me? And all of a sudden the falcon turned around, walked about 3 feet away from the car. It got up, it flew, landed on a nearby branch. And I just looked at it and I went, okay, here's a message. What's the message? I have no freaking clue what the message is. Not in the moment, anyway. Did I know what the message was? Absolutely not. I had no freaking clue what the falcon was trying to tell me in that moment. Not at all. No idea. But as I was getting ready to leave, like to continue on my journey to work, and the falcon's way up in the tree, I just started to drive a little bit. I think I drove like 20 feet or something, and then I had to pull over again. And then it just happened. I just came over with this unbelievable feeling and sensations, and I started to just bawl my eyes out. Like, I'm talking bawl my eyes out. My whole body was experiencing this moment, and my heart was so expanded, and my mind was blown away. And I had just had a conversation with a falcon, and I was just in this divine moment, this incredible moment, special moment to have had this with this wild creature, this wild 2-footed bird. Honestly, like there are no really words that can describe these kind of magical, mystical moments because it's hard to put into words. And when I got home that night, I shared my story with some loved ones, and then that night I went to bed and I had these dreams. And the first dream I had was I was driving to work in the morning, and I'm driving along the gravel road, and then I come along this road that I come along this highway that I have to cross over in order to get to my place of work. And in my dream, I'm at the intersection. There's lights there, and the whole road is collapsed. I can't cross over there. There's no way in my dream. I can't cross over. So in my dream, I'm trying to find another avenue. I'm trying to find another route to get there, and I can't. So then I dream about something else, and then I'm having another dream, and I'm driving to work again. And then I'm at that intersection again. And this time at that intersection, there's an overpass, and the overpass had collapsed, and there is no way that I could cross the highway. Again, I'm stuck on this side of the highway, and the place of business is on the other side. I can't get to it. So in my dream, I'm like super frustrated. Like, I got to get to work, we got to get on time. I like to be punctual, and I couldn't get to work. So then when I woke up, I started to think, okay, that's a pretty strong message, not being able to go to work. I wonder if it has anything to do with the falcon the day before. And again, We don't always heed our messages immediately. So the third day, I get getting ready in the morning to go to work, and I start kind of quickly walking down the stairs, and I fall. I fall down the stairs. I think I missed the last 5 steps of the stairwell. And I'm lying at the bottom of the staircase, and I'm in pain. You know, I didn't break anything, but I'm in pain. I'm hurting. That was quite the fall. And so in the midst of my crying, I then all of a sudden, the message was clear. You are not to go to work. And as I'm lying in as a puddle at the bottom of the staircase, I started laughing like a loon because it's like, oh, okay, all right. Okay, I got the message. You don't need to break any bones for this message. I get it. And so my message from the hawk was, yes, it's time to walk away from that job and walk towards your dream. And my dream was to fully immerse myself in running this business as a bed and breakfast and market it and get some amazing people here. And yeah. And the interesting thing is that about a week later, the owner of the business I worked for, he worked with a very specific consultant, and they were working on their succession plan, like the succession plan of the business. And so the consultant took me aside and started asking me some questions, and he was like, how's the bed and breakfast going, and all that fun stuff. And then he said, you know, as your boss wants to get into his succession planning, he kind of needs to know whether or not you're committed to seeing that through. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you know, where are you at? Are you in or are you out? I was like, oh, okay. So I needed to make a decision. So everything was aligned. The message was there. I was already in that place of questioning. The message came through the hawk. He was preventing me from driving along the road I go to get to work. I had the dreams. I had the fall, clear messages. And then shortly thereafter, you know, the bosses must have got the message as well and said, you know, give Carol an ultimatum and see how she flies with that, because it's time for her to move on. And after consulting with my husband, I made the decision to walk away from that corporate world altogether and be my own boss and run my own business. And I'm happy to say that that was one of the best things I'd ever done in my life. Really, I was good at it. I love people. I love being of service. We had lots to offer, and yeah, that was a big decision, and we were very successful. And we ran that bed and breakfast for 11 years. So no regrets. And I'm so grateful for Spirit of the Falcon for giving me that message clearly that day. We interrupt this podcast to bring you the latest news of Shine Your Light and what we've been working on. On May 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th, we originally had a beautiful retreat planned out for you out in the countryside of Whitemouth along the Whitemouth River. However, with the situation of what's going on in the world right now, that isn't physically possible, but it is virtually possible. And so Sandra and I have decided to take this retreat virtually. What does that mean exactly? Well, it means that you can join us for a live ceremony. We will do that through Zoom. And then we'll move into the teachings that will happen through pre-recorded videos that we have all set up for you. It's kind of fun. We've been having a lot of fun actually preparing it. But, you know, every retreat needs good food. Every retreat needs some really deep spiritual work. And every retreat needs a little bit of fun, right? Those are like some beautiful elements of a really successful retreat. And also the destination. And so the destination is your home. our homes should be our sanctuaries. So the home will be the destination of your retreat. The food will be your own cooking, but Sandra has got some healthy cooking tips and some amazing recipes she's sharing with you based on the knowledge of Ayurveda. And so that's happening through video. And then myself, I will be guiding you through the steps of navigating your spiritual footprint. And they are everything from connecting with our guides and how do we do that and who are they, moving into activating our 12-strand DNA. What is in our DNA? How are we comprised? What is that all about exactly? And we're going to get in deep in that, how that can help us by activating it. And then we're going to actually have a huge discussion around karma and what karma is. And this might be an uncomfortable conversation. I don't know. Depends on what your belief system is around karma. Then we're going to get into forgiveness. Oh, that's a big one, forgiveness. So we're going to actually focus on those 4 steps. There are actually 7 steps. And those 7 steps, steps 5, 6, and 7 will be given to you at a later date online so that you can go ahead and finish those steps. But for now, we're focused on the 4 steps. So we start Friday afternoon with a really nice nutritional lunch, and then we move through our opening ceremony, and then we move into step 1. Then Saturday, breakfast will be provided for you with a recipe. You're going to get into step 2, and then you're going to have an amazing lunch that will be suggested to you. And then we'll move into some group work in the afternoon. And the same thing will repeat itself on Sunday and on Monday, and then Monday afternoon, we will finish with a live Zoom closing ceremony of our retreat. Now, the most amazing thing about all this is how do we want you to join us. It's really important that we do this work right now. We're in the house anyways, so what the heck, right? Let's work on ourselves. Let's work on elevating our vibration to this beautiful high vibration. And so what we've decided is we want this to be accessible to everybody. And we decided that the pay structure is pay from your heart. Pay from your heart. So what does that mean? It means that we have some suggested prices for you listed on the website. And we want you to pay according to what you're capable of paying. What is comfortable for you. We do not want to take food away from you and your family. So we have made it so reasonable. But if you can afford to pay more, then we want you to go ahead and pay more. The value of this retreat is $444, and we are offering it on different scales from $222 all the way to $44. So you let us know. We trust you that you will pay from your heart and what you're able to pay. I really hope you join us. We are super excited to offer this. And it's not the same as being in person, but let me tell you, you're still going to feel that energy. You're still going to feel that love. You're still going to feel that growth. And so join us. Join us. Time for the 3rd big decision. So my husband and I are running the bed and breakfast, and we've been doing that for several years. I think we're in year 6. Yeah, I would say 6 or so. And what I started to notice was that there was a huge change in the people that were coming. I had always marketed the business as being a destination bed and breakfast where you could experience some really cool packages, like anything from pizza night, which was making your own homemade pizza, to a culinary excursion where you would actually go and go pick your vegetables at a local organic farm, and then come home and we would do a whole cooking class with the foods that we picked, to pajama night with the girls, which was all about celebrating friendship with the girls, to lover packages where you could come with your loved one and receive hot stone massages. I had 1,000 different ideas for packages. And what I was starting to notice is that people were really buying into that, but mostly who was coming were women who came alone, who were needing to come for big decisions.
Perhaps they were looking at leaving their jobs. Perhaps they were looking at leaving a relationship. Perhaps they were thinking about starting a new business. So they would come to contemplate. And then other people would come for a spiritual experience. They wanted to do yoga and learn how to meditate. They wanted to connect with themselves and find themselves again. So all of a sudden, I was really creating very unique spiritual retreats for individuals. Most of my clients were women, and I had a few men throughout the years, but most of them were women. And it was really a unique offering because it's hard to find anywhere to go for a spiritual retreat for one person. Most retreats are for several people. They're groups, right? So I had a bit of a niche, but anyways, before that was all sort of to come into fruition, I was sort of again at the crossroads because what I was finding is that it was a lot more fulfilling for me to work one-on-one with individuals in their spiritual journey and to assist them with that in their healing journey than it was for me to be catering to the bride and groom who wanted to stay for their wedding night. And they would get here at 2 o'clock in the morning, drunk out of their face, and not really remember the memory of the whole experience of staying at this beautiful bed and breakfast. So I was really starting to find that, a lot of the usual B&B stayers I was less interested in serving them, and I was more interested in serving those that were seeking that inner growth and that spiritual wisdom that I had to share in so many different ways. And so here again, I was at this crossroad because in business, I had spent the first 6 years of the business marketing it in a way in which that was profitable for us. We had heads in the bed like 274 nights a year. Like we were busy. And then all of a sudden to sort of switch the clientele to individuals who want to come and do a retreat, I didn't really know what was out there for that. Like how busy would I be for that? Or how busy did I need to be? Because now that was something different and I could charge higher prices for that. So I was kind of again at this place of crossroads, at this place of the fork and going, do I leave my clientele of the bed and breakfast guests that come all the time just to come and stay and have a nice place to stay? Or do I move the business towards that spiritual path, which is really the path that I was on? And do I move more towards that and really help whoever comes to me with their journeys? So here I was. And what did that mean? Did that mean that I would lose money on one? Would I be able to make a living with the other? Because at this point, the bed and breakfast again was the main income. And so to shift gears, even though it was sort of gradually happening anyways, kind of just organically, but to shift gears completely might mean a big loss of my income, the source of our income. So I throw it out to spirit again and I say, okay, I need a sign. Can you please give me a sign? And never am I disappointed. So I asked for a sign. And I think too that where I was coming from was not only just a place of, should I be of service in this way to help in spiritual counsel and to help individuals on their own spiritual path, but I think in tandem at the same time, it was, do I full on step into this world of developing and growing my own spiritual well-being? My own healing journey has taken me so far, and now am I ready to take that next level and step it up? So I think both were sort of playing in tandem. What was going on in my inner world was also being reflected in my outer world. So I asked for a sign, and I asked specifically for an eagle. Yeah, another big bird. I asked for an eagle. And sure enough, the following day, my husband and we drove to my parents' place. I had to go do some business there, and they live out in the country. They live on 80 acres. And I think actually, I say my parents' place, but my dad had already passed by then. So I was off to go see my mom. And then on the way back, driving on my mom's road, both Grant and I saw this huge bird fly by, like quickly. Like I didn't really grasp to see what it was. All I saw was that it was huge. It had flown over, and I just saw a white, and I remember thinking, what was that? And I remember thinking, was that an eagle with like a white cat in its talons? Because I could just see this big white thing, like where his feet would be, and I wasn't sure. And I mean, we're talking about, it was probably 20 feet ahead of us and 30 feet up in the sky. So it was really kind of hard to see what it was that we were actually looking at. So I just said to my husband, I go, did you see that? And he goes, yeah, but he goes, but I don't know what that was. I go, yeah, me neither. I have no clue what that was. So we continue driving, and then we turn onto another road, and we're driving along, and all of a sudden, the bald eagle comes swooping down in front of our vehicle, right where the hood is. We were driving a little tiny Toyota Corolla at the time, so a little tiny car. It came swooping at the same height as the hood, about 3 feet in front of us. As we drove, it flew in a horizontal line with us. For I would say probably it felt like infinity, but maybe 10 seconds. And I would say in distance, probably 10 feet. It's just to give you an idea. But while this eagle was in front of us, its wingspan was bigger than the width of the vehicle. I had never been that close to an eagle before. Those birds are huge. Huge, 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 huge. I'm talking big, big, big bird here. Huge. And we're driving along together, if you want. It's leading the way. And both my husband and I are just like gum-smacked. My mouth is wide open. I'm just like, wow. And then the bird swooped up and went and landed in a tree. And I said to my husband, pull over. You need to pull over. Just pull over. So he pulled over. I got out of the car. I looked at the bird, at the eagle, and I said, thank you. Thank you for your message. And again, I'm overwhelmed with that feeling that I start bawling my eyes out again. I'm just like this puddle of emotion, and I'm just like having this divine moment again. And my husband's looking at me going, wow. I don't know if he was more wowie about the bird or if he was more wowie about my reaction. I'm not really sure, but we were both having a wow moment. And I was like, wow, 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 wow. And I'm speechless. And he goes, what was that? And I said, I asked for a message. Really? I said, yeah, I asked for the message. I asked, should I take the business on the spiritual path? Should I do more retreats? Should I focus on that? Do I need to take the business that way? And he's like, wow. I said, yeah, that was the answer. Because I asked for an eagle. He's like, wow. I'm like, I know. And he goes, so what do you think the answer is? I said, well, I don't know about you, but that was a spiritual experience. And to me, the path is the spiritual path, no doubt. He's like, yeah. Okay. So then we compose ourselves and we come back into the vehicle, and then we turn another corner, on this road that we're making our way back home. And out in the sky from one end to the other, we see this amazing arc rainbow. And I went, okay, so now not only did I get the message from the spirit of the eagle or the physical eagle, but I also got the message from the spirit of nature, and the rainbow just confirmed that you're on the right path. Like, you go, girl, you know? Yeah, and that was my third big bird, a very big decision in life. And so I took that lead, and I started to promote the bed and breakfast more as a retreat center. I created a lot more retreat packages, and I have had some of the most profound and beautiful experiences with women and men who have come to do their work, to do the work of finding their light, of shining their light. And I realized that the business, the bed and breakfast, we always called it the Calder House because it was about the historical component of the house that we lived in. And I realized that it was no longer about the house and the history. It was about people shining their light. People shining their light. And that I was just, the house was just the container, and I was just an instrument or tool, if you want, for those people, my clients who have come through the years to shine their light. And I have been blessed with so many beautiful experiences and so many amazing relationships that came from that. And so when you really have a big decision in life and you're not sure of the path, you ask. Ask Spirit to give you a message. Because they can't assist you if you don't ask. So if you ask them, they will give you a message. But you need to be prepared to be the observer and the witness of those messages. Because if your eyes and your ears and your nose and your knowing is closed, the messages will come, but you won't receive them. So wherever you are right now in life, and if you have some big decisions to be made, and I know that many of us as business owners, we really are, we're at that fork in the road because there's so much uncertainty. We don't know that if we continue, if we're allowed to continue with this lockdown, will the business recoup enough for the losses that we have occurred? And on the other hand, there are some businesses that have been able to become very creative in order to assist them in surviving. But even that is going to take its toll on you as a person and as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. It's going to take its toll on you because these are uncharted territories for all of us. We're all navigating through this. And so at some point you may need to make a really big decision. And the decision might be, do I continue or do I end it? Because right now you're in survival mode. Right now you're in, how do I pay the staff? How do I make sure my staff comes back? Or how do I pay my bills? Or how do I pay my mortgage? Or how do I put food on the table? So wherever you're at, I want you to know that if you have come to that fork in the road where you're needing to make a decision, ask your guides. Ask Spirit for a sign. Ask Spirit for a sign that you're going to be okay. Ask Spirit for a sign in what direction you should take. Should you close it down or should you continue? Ask for a sign. They will send you the sign. You need to be open to receiving it, and you need to be open to accepting the message that they're giving you. And then you have free will, and you can decide whether you go along with their suggestion or you don't. Either way, ask. They're always here to help us, but we need to ask. Ikine ka hichiku uko nina amana hiti inina ro'a kinisha kumu. Inehina ha hiti isi. And so from the bald eagle, I leave you a message from the bald eagle. Until next time.